Welcome into another edition of the Doyel and Derek Podcast through the IndyStar, through Skype as well. I'm your host, Derek Schultz, but the real star of the show is the one, the only, Gregg Doyel. And we both have nice shirts on.
No, I don't. In fact, we started the Skype call, and I'm looking at you in your lumberjack shirt. I'm like, Derek, why are you wearing a nice shirt? You're making me look bad. What are you doing?
You know what, man? I've been holed up in this house for 2 months. I'm currently
Yeah.
employed. Sometimes you just need to wake up and put a nice shirt on. And today was that day. So I've been in sweatpants and old throwback Indianapolis, from the shop t-shirts. So I just wanted to put something on nice and look somewhat presentable for our pod today. That's all.
I need to know, do you wear the sweatpants that kind of, start to hug your leg? They're form-fitting like the cool kids wear, or do you have the old baggy ones that you and I wore 10 years ago?
No, I got the joggers, the form
joggers,
if you will. Yeah. So I've got those. I've got those in gray and black. And then I try not to get too trendy with, because I understand.
Oh, yeah. The hipster. I'm looking at your Ray-Ban hipster glasses and the full beard. If there's anything you don't do, Derek, is get trendy. Those are Ray-Bans.
I'm pushing 40, man. So I want to try to kind of maintain somewhat of a youthful look, but I don't want to get too crazy with it. So I try to. You're right. There are some hipster things. I do wear skinny jeans.
Wait. There aren't, Derek, let's be clear about this. There aren't some hipster things about you. There are some Derek Schultz things about hipsters. You are the hipsteriest hipster I've ever seen, but you pull it off. It looks good and all that, and your gigantic chest and your short little legs, it all works together. And you and that Matt Harms picture is heartbreaking to look at because you're a hipster and he's 9 feet tall and it looks great.
That gigantic chest that you speak of is becoming flabbier and flabbier by the day, but we won't get into
that. Let me tell you something, Derek. I'm in the best shape physically. No, I'm not, but I'm in better shape than I was before this whole thing started. Because
that bag in your garage?
In my girlfriend Whitney's garage, yes. In fact, but the thing is, because I can't ride the exercise bike, so which I used to do 3 times a week. In my gym at the hotel. I'm sorry, at the apartment. My cardio is probably not that great, but all I can do is do upper body workouts, with body weight, and then hit the bag. So I'm getting bigger, and I mean I like it. I don't like what we're going through, but I like what's happening to my body. I worked out this morning. Can you see? You see?
Yeah, you got a little punch there. It looks like.
Yeah, here's who punched me. It's one of those. If this thing doesn't make it onto YouTube, it's one of those 3 foot long rubber cords, workout cords with a handle at each end. And I wrap that thing around my chest, so the handles are right at basically at your shoulders. You wrap it, and so it takes effort to extend them. And so I do a couple rounds just with those. And the damn handle came back. I was hitting it, it just came back and scraped my face, and I'm bleeding. So yikes. I lost to a rubber band today.
Those things are dangerous, though. I've rarely used resistance bands, but those things are dangerous. Everybody gets hurt working out.
Yeah, but not like I do. Not like I do. I got and believe me, it's a long, boring story, and I'm not even going to start it. But no one gets hurt like I get hurt. I've stopped and started entire sports because I got hurt doing one, so I started doing another one. It's just ridiculous. But I don't want to hear about Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, and how tough they are and all that. I'm fighting something. It's not even human. What I'm fighting, this band isn't even human, and I'm living to tell about it. Tony Ferguson, I'd kick his rear end.
That's right. Let's actually, we're going to get into some fighting a little bit later on because you have a strong passion for something that I understand why it's popular, but it's just not my cup of tea. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Let's start kind of local sports wise. From the last couple of days, this news about Victor Oladipo, your colleague Jay Michael, who does a terrific job covering the Pacers, has an article right now in the IndyStar about the team wanting to do everything in its power to extend Victor Oladipo, which certainly isn't a surprise. His contract runs up after next season. What's interesting about this, Greg, is that Oladipo will be 29 he just turned 28 last week. So he'll be 29 at the completion of his contract. We still didn't really get to see him get his sea legs under him coming back from that patella tear. So, it's everyone loves Victor Oladipo here in Indiana, but a long-term extension, something like a 4-year deal for Oladipo, could be potentially risky for the Pacers, given that right now is the prime of his career, and certainly at 33 years old, he wouldn't be in his prime anymore. But what's your reaction to what the Pacers source had to tell J. Michael about their franchise player?
First of all, that story, I love that he wrote it. You know, someone's got to have that, and I'm glad that J. Michael had it. Having said that, and J. Michael would agree with this, that was one of those no bleep stories. Like, no bleep. They're going to do everything they can to re-sign.
Sure.
No bleep. But you got to have it, right? I mean, someone's got to get a source to say it, and someone's got to report it. And so I'm glad it was us. But no bleep. And the reason why it's no bleep is that when you're we all know this. When you're the Pacers and you have when he's healthy, a potential, all NBA second or third team guy, you do whatever you can to hang on to him. And if that even means wishful thinking, hoping that he comes back from the patellar tendon tear better, remotely close to what he was, that's what you do. It's why they're playing Miles Turner and Sabonis together. When the rest of the NBA is going small, they're not doing that because they're thinking, you know what, we're going to beat everybody this way because they're small. We're going to go big and we're going to beat them. They're not thinking that. They're just thinking we've got elite-ish, and Sabonis is becoming elite, but elite-ish players. We got to do whatever we can to keep them because those don't come around here very often. So that's why they're going to keep Oladipo and hope for the best. They have no choice.
Sorry, I said patella tendon, quad tear, but all of these tears, it's a serious tear. So,
right.
We knew that given the rehab and the amount of time that he was on the shelf. I think what really is kind of interesting for the Pacers and what puts them in an advantageous spot is Oladipo, according to the article, and his camp say, look, we don't want to re-sign until the contract is expired because we want to get the max. We want to get the years. We want to get the money that we can get, and we can't do that signing an extension. So let's go ahead and wait until the completion of next season. And I think that's actually an advantage for the Pacers because you can take a full year to look and see what you have before you decide, hey, do we want to do a 4-year deal with this guy?
Yeah, there's so many. It's not black and white. You might think it ought to be, and maybe Kevin Pritchard and whoever else the Pacers making this decision think it is black and white. But there's so much here because of who Oladipo is, where he went to school, how popular he is, what impact he has just walking through the locker room. He's not normal, and I mean that in the best possible way. He's special in a lot of ways. So I think you sign that. What you don't let happen is you drag this thing out to the point that Oladipo starts to feel like, wait a minute, what more do you want to see out of me? I busted my butt to get back. I'm pretty damn good. I mean, the sooner they can get this done, the better. I to be honest with you, I haven't read the entire story, so I really don't know if I'm treading on ground that's already been refuted. But I read the first couple of graphs and tweeted it out because I loved it so much. Like, oh, good, Oladipo's coming back. Let me tweet this out. And then because I've got ADD, I forgot to get back to it. But I am holding. You see, Theodore and I really hope. Yeah. I really hope my bosses put this online because he deserves. I mean, he deserves a reality. Look at him. Look at that cat. I mean, is he not the dumbest animal you've ever seen?
Oh, he's a good boy.
He's the best, but he's an idiot. I'm not sure he even knows he's breathing. I mean, I don't know, like a single cell amoeba. I mean, he's like a paramecium, but anyway, he's the best. And you can do whatever you want with him. You can he's almost like one of those rubber band toys. Like what is the Stretch Armstrong?
Yeah.
You can just grab him and play him with him and walk him and pretend he's walking. And I mean, he's just the best. He's just not very smart.
I had a cat as a kid who was my age. He was born the year that me and my sisters were born. And she lived until she was 20. So I came back from college and she was still with us then. And she loved me, but she did not like to be picked up or anything like that. She would just snap or scratch at you. So that's actually cool that your cat allows you to do that.
Well,
I know
and
cats can be moody.
Oh, they're all different. They're all different. He's the closest thing to a dog I've ever seen for a cat because all he cares about is making me happy, which is what dogs. I've got another cat here. My son Jackson. I've got his cat for a little while, and that cat's about 7 pounds of holy terror. And that cat, you can't hold that cat, and it doesn't want to be held. And in fact, yesterday we did a Zoom call with the Colts coordinators, Matt Eberflus, and then Nick Sirianni on offense. And Sirianni has a ping pong table back behind him, see it. And Mike Wells, being of ESPN, being Mike Wells, says, "Hey Nick, I've got one in my basement. I bet I can beat you." And so they're talking about that just a little bit. And when the last question of the day was mine, and my other cat, Marmalade, my son's cat, was sitting over here in the windowsill next to me, and I spin my computer around, and I said, Nick, you see that? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I told him I don't have a ping pong table, but my cat, if you have a cat, my cat can take your cat. And then he goes, well, I have a dog. And I said, well, my cat could probably take your dog. This cat is 5 pounds of hell. So I'm just trying to get the attention and the stardom on where it belongs around here. My snake, my cats.
That's right.
The Ray-Ban glasses. I mean, people need to know what's going on around here.
Doyle's Zoo on the south side over there. May 11th now, or what is it? May 12th? Who knows? It's somewhere in mid-May.
Is it Tuesday? Is it? I mean, is it Monday?
Are we going to see a completion of the NBA season with where we sit today?
No. Listen, and they're trying. They're flailing about. They're trying. You say completion. I could see a startup again, maybe. I wouldn't bet on it. If I had to bet yes or no, I'd bet no. But I could see it starting up, but there'll be another wave. I mean, a player will get sick. There's just no way. I mean, I get that you've got to try. What you don't do is we're ready to go, but there's going to be a second wave, so let's not even bother. No, you got to try. But there'll be a second wave, even if it's just – I mean, what I'm saying is let's just say they start the NBA season up in some shape or form on July 20th, whatever. I put the over-under on how long does it last at 3 days, because that's how many days it'll take people. Oh, people will get sick. People will test positive. It's just going to happen. And again, I've said this to you a million times. I'll say it every time. But what I can't stand is when people say, give us something to hope for. Why? I mean, it's got to be realistic, right? I mean, yeah, let's hope for. You want me to talk about the supermodel you're going to date or the lottery you're going to win? I mean, no, we're not going to talk about stuff that's just not going to happen. And this season going on its own merry way, it's just not going to happen. It's just not. And there's no even reason to, I mean, emotionally prepare yourself, because it's not going to happen.
I just don't think that they would even start it unless they had somewhat of an idea that they had a chance to finish it. So what you say, starting it up and then closing it out in 3 days or something because somebody tests positive, I think they would just cancel the season before they'd go ahead and try that. Silver seems to be a pretty smart guy.
Which is why I would say if I had to bet money on yes or no, I'd bet no. But if they do roll the dice on it, they're not going to finish it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the thing is, the NBA season, this is not Major League Baseball. Like, I can see baseball, well, the same thing. I can see them starting up and a couple players get sick, and that's it. So because it's not the same as the UFC. The UFC over the weekend, they had a fight, got canceled. One fight got canceled, but they had, I think they had originally 13 fights. Let's say 12 fights. That's 24 fighters. They had 24 guys in 24 hotel rooms, separate, all that stuff separate. One of them got tested positive, so they canceled his fight. You can continue the fight card because you got 22 guys in 22 hotel rooms. If you have a baseball team and a guy tests positive, that means he's exposed himself to everybody on the team and perhaps whoever he played against yesterday or tomorrow. I mean, it just can't happen. It's not. I mean, these are not apples and oranges. I'm sorry. These are.
And there are, and we've talked about this. There are sports like UFC and racing golf, where I think they're going to be more able to put something on and keep everybody safe. These team sports with these huge clubhouses and locker rooms and all of that and all this personnel, it's just going to be really, really difficult.
Did you see what Dr.
Go ahead.
Before we segue to that, did you see what Dr. Fauci said about football yesterday?
No, I missed it.
Terrifying. And I think we can all agree that Dr. Fauci he's been, the leading voice on this thing. He just has been. And he's a sports nut. He played basketball. He played against, I forget who did he play against, Donnie Walsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy likes sports and he's a great personality, but he's just a realist. He's a scientist. And he says that football, sad to say, is the perfect incubator for the virus. And I was hoping, well, yeah, because there'll be 80,000. No, he wasn't talking about the fans in the crowd. He was talking about the players on the field, just the way they will bump into each other. Obviously, that's all they do is make contact, and there's a bunch of them. He was saying that'll just spread like wildfire if one guy's sick, and one guy's going to get sick. I mean, even without symptoms, one's got. So what he said just was terrifying to me. I heard that and thought, oh no, I kind of was getting my brain wrapped around the idea of we're going to have football, and I'll be covering it off the TV screen. And everybody will be watching off TV, but we'll take it. I'll take it. But what Fauci said makes me think, I don't know.
But I don't blame the NFL for treating it like it's business as usual because they have the luxury of doing that because the season is still 4 months away. You know what I mean? So I think you just have to approach it like this and hope for the best, knowing that it's going to be a very much an uphill climb to get anything happening. I think college football is really where I'm worried because, if you've got these states like Georgia and Alabama opening up and then California decides not to, then what are we going to do? UGA and Bama and Auburn can play, but USC, Stanford, UCLA can't. You know what I mean? It's going to be a really kind of messy situation, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm glad that you brought up the whole UFC thing because that's something that has exploded in popularity. And here's an analogy I'm going to make, and stick with me here, Greg. UFC to me is like country music. I get why it's popular. It's just not my thing. So I'm not going to knock it. It's just not my personal taste. Like deviled eggs. I get that people really like deviled eggs. I don't like deviled eggs. They'll never be my thing. I've tried to give UFC a chance, and it's just a little too, maybe I'm soft here. It's just too brutal for me. I can't do the ground stuff and the submissions. Like it physically pains me to watch that. And you love it. You live for it. I can tell just by the look on your face. You love that stuff.
Yeah, I DVR all the fights and I watch one fight at a time. And it takes me, if it's like yesterday, I watched 1 3-round fight. It's 3 rounds, 15 minutes. You can fast forward commercials. It takes me about 30 minutes to watch a fight because I'm rewinding. Like I'll miss something. The announcer will say, "Hey, good left hand there," but there's so much going on. I'll rewind it and see it. I love the sport like I've never loved the sport. And I grew up playing everything, and at least I've never loved a sport like this one. But 2007, I hated the sport. Hated it. John McCain had recently called it human cockfighting, and it was like at that point it was UFC 68 or so. That's where they were. Now they're at UFC 250 almost. That's how early it was in the process. I hated it. The UFC came to Columbus, Ohio in March of, I think it was 07. And I think it was UFC 70. It might have been 68, but I think it was 70. Came to Columbus, Ohio. And I drove up there with the sole intention of ripping it. I was the CBS sports guy and I ripped everything. I was Mr. Hot Take guy. I was going to go up and write a hot take about how much I hate the UFC and how stupid it is. For the same reasons you did. I don't like the violence. It scared me. I went there and within 3 fights, loved it. And that night wrote a love story, a love poem almost to the UFC. And the reason I loved it was not so much like, oh, wow, to be here and to see how violent it is even better. What I saw was the camaraderie. Like, in boxing, these guys, they seem to hate each other. They don't touch gloves before rounds. There's no camaraderie in boxing, which is fine. I love boxing too. But in UFC, maybe because they know they're in a small little circle, they know how hard they work at this. It's just the camaraderie. Even after a fight, after you watch these guys try to almost literally kill each other. Like if you don't get pulled off a guy by the referee, you could kill him. Watching them hug it out, and I don't mean just hug and move on, but I mean sit there like they're almost at a bar stool, just now comparing notes on what just happened. Yeah, you got me good with that punch. I fell in love with it. It's a whole different thing for me now to know that these guys, no matter how much crap they talk, afterwards they're gonna hug, and it's a sport. It's not a fight. It's a sport, and I just love it.
What I do find really appealing in it is, unlike, I think you could do this in heavyweight boxing. I mean, I guess all rounds of boxing can end at any moment by TKO, but usually you only see that, the prevalence of that is in the higher divisions in heavyweight. UFC, you make one mistake, you could be winning the entire night. You make one mistake, you get submitted or roundhouse kicked in the face. You're donezo. And I kind of like that fact that you never feel like it's over until it's really over. And so much of sports is an NBA game where you've got a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter and the game's over, or an NFL game where you're up 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, it's over. UFC, it feels like it's never truly over until it's waved off or, whatever, the fight ends on decision.
There's that great commercial that I think it's Michelob. I think it is. I forget now. It's a beer commercial about soccer, and they show like it's when you look away is like when the guy delivers your pizza and you walk to the pizza door, and that's when you hear everybody going nuts. There's a goal behind you and you miss it. That's the commercial. A bunch of these things. UFC's like that, only it's every second. You literally can't look away. You can't. Like in soccer, unless the ball's right in front of the goal mouth, you can probably go look away. And even if, I mean, you could literally spend 90 minutes looking away and you might not miss a goal. In the UFC, you can't look away. Any second the fight's over. And one of the biggest fights that, because it turned out this way, was the first time Anderson Silva fought Chael Sonnen. Anderson Silva is one of the greatest of all time and was in the middle of this long winning streak and was unbeatable. And Chael Sonnen was just a guy that talked his way into the fight. He's on ESPN now because he's a great talker, but he talked his way into the fight. I mean, he didn't deserve it, but he talked his way into it, and it was great, and I watched it. And he was kicking Anderson Silva's butt for 23 minutes, like getting him on the ground and ground and pounding him and just beating him up. I mean, it was 2 minutes away from going to a decision. It was going to be Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson. I mean, it was that big of an upset. But Chael made one mistake. Silva caught him in a triangle and choked him, made him submit, tap out with like a minute to go. And if that fight goes the other way, I mean, it just changes the whole sport. I don't know how it changes it, but for Anderson Silva to lose that fight to that guy, and that guy's now the champion, it just changes. Well, and we'll never know what that means. I don't mean it kills the sport. I don't mean it makes the sport even better. I just mean the whole narrative of the UFC changes if that, what you just said, that last second comeback doesn't happen. It's great.
Have you ever done that for fun, step into an octagon? You've sparred in a boxing ring, but have you ever – do you do anything else besides boxing? Like, have you ever done jiu-jitsu or any of those other disciplines that all these guys have to know?
I mean, they call it rolling. I've rolled with a few guys here and there. Yeah, I've rolled with, Chris Lytle is a former UFC fighter, and he and we've sparred several times. Sometimes people watching, sometimes nobody watching. But we actually fought, 3 or 4 years ago, a fundraiser for Rocksteady Boxing. But I've rolled with him, and I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a candy from a baby thing. I mean, I'm helpless against. So I've done that, but I've never really done any of the other stuff. But when I fell in love with UFC, I'd already started boxing actually. So I was a boxer. I mean, in my spare time, but I was a hobbyist boxer when I fell in love with UFC. I'm sorry, and I still hated it. Being a boxer, I hated it. And then I went to this fight card in Columbus and fell in love with it. I fell in love with it so much, I wanted to know, because I saw a couple guys tap out, and I grew up watching professional wrestling like everybody else did, and you see the sleeper hold, and someone's falling asleep. And I'm watching these trained fighters that spend all this time for this one fight. Why would you tap out? I mean, if your arm's about to get broken, okay, but they're choking you from behind. Why would you tap out? Just suck it up or fall asleep. But why would you tap out? So I went to this UFC gym we had in Ohio, and it's where Rich Franklin, who at the time he wasn't the middleweight champion. He just lost to Anderson Silva. So he was the former middleweight champion. Rich Franklin was there. Dustin Hazlett, the UFC guy, was there for a while. George Gurgel, a UFC guy and the original Ultimate Fighter, was there. It was his gym. I walked in the gym, introduced myself to Gurgel, told him what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do is this. I told him, I want to know why people tap out. I want you to choke me out. And he made me sign a waiver, and Rich Franklin happened to be there that day. And I'm about to say a curse word. So IndyStar bosses, if you got to bleep it, you got to bleep it. And the thing is, they're putting this thing up, and they're not even going to listen to it. I'm about to curse because I'm going to quote Rich Franklin. But so Gurgel gets behind me and starts putting this rear naked choke on me. And in about 5 seconds, I can feel myself falling asleep. I can feel it happening. And right as I'm falling asleep, Rich Franklin's standing right there, muscular, huge. Anyway,
of course.
Right. And as I'm doing that, I hear Rich Franklin say, "Who's got the camera in case this guy shits himself?" And I'm like, what? And I mean, he was teasing. He knew I wasn't going to happen. But I then, Gurgel then woke me up. He's like tapped me on the face. And I remember I was dreaming. I was on like this Caribbean island. I was on the beach. The water's like going over me, and like it's a beautiful, relaxing dream. And I got this little Brazilian dude going, "Hello, wake up, hello!" Like, Michelle, leave me the hell alone. There's about to be a good-looking woman on this beach, I'm sure of it. Get the hell out of here. So, yeah.
That's great. We should just do this for the podcast. Let's just tell stories of you being, forced into submission or boxing or whatever else. I think people are fascinated by that stuff,
it's
man.
George Plimpton, who was the first, as far as I know, the first really interactive sports journalist. George Plimpton tried out for the Detroit Lions completely for the story. He wasn't thinking he was going to make the team. And he called the book is called Paper Lion. And Theodore, Knucklehead. So Plumpton did things like that, but yeah, I'm a little bit too old to do too much more of that stuff. But I like it a lot.
You've been fighting through, here's a good transition. You've been fighting through some furloughs, as most of your colleagues have over there at the IndyStar, including last week, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think we talked about the Colts schedule, right?
No, we have not.
The primetime thing, some fans were upset about. There's Theodore again. What was your reaction to the Colts only getting one primetime game and it being on the road? They haven't had a lot of home primetime games here recently.
To me, who cares? I don't care. I get it if you look, Jim Irsay clearly cares. So I get there's kind of like you don't like deviled eggs, but you understand why people eat them, I guess. I don't care. But I get why, I guess, if you're the owner, because it's like a status symbol. We didn't get a primetime game at home. We're only on primetime once. It's a status symbol. So I understand where they're coming from, but I think you're almost too close to it to care. It doesn't matter. You're still gonna play 16 games on national television, every last one of them. Do you have the thing to yourself on Thursday night or Monday night? No. But how many games are there? I guess Red Zone you can watch a lot, but to me it's not a big deal. I don't know why anybody really would care.
I don't care in the sense that like I'm butthurt over the fact, well, the Colts aren't on primetime and Buffalo gets to be on primetime and brr, 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 brr. I don't care in that sense, Greg. But I went back and looked, and the Colts have played, counting this year when they go at Nashville to face Tennessee, they'll have played 10 division games on Thursday Night Football since the inception of Thursday Night Football in 2007. Do you know how many of those games they've played at home? 10 division Thursday night games since 2007.
Okay.
They've played one at home.
That's weird. That's real weird.
21 of the last 26 Thursday night or Monday night games that the Colts have played have been on the road. So that's 80-something%. I think that, you're kind of treading into competitive disadvantage waters there, where you continually on short weeks have to play on the road. It's a disadvantage. You continually have to play short weeks in the division on the road. It's a disadvantage. And I think that's where Jim Irsay gets upset. The Colts having 3 primetime games last year, nothing at home, and yet another Thursday night game, which seems like an annual occurrence in Nashville or in Houston or in Jacksonville. So that's where I was upset with the schedule. The rest of the schedule is great because the schedule looks like a cakewalk. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Colts are going to be great next year because I don't think they're going to be great. I think there's a lot of unknowns, but this schedule stinks on paper with what we know right now.
Stinks as in the teams they play are going to stink?
Well, not all of them. I mean, you've got Baltimore. I don't think the division is bad. I think Jacksonville's bad. But I think Tennessee is fine. I think Houston is fine. I think they're around the same level of the Colts. I think it's a competitive division. But I think overall, it's not necessarily that great of a schedule. And if you look, I think is it winning percentage or something like that? It's one of the worst in the league. Again, we're taking last year's winning percentage. So how seriously do you take that? Because, last year you would have looked at Buffalo and been like, oh, that's a win. And then you realize, wait a minute, Buffalo ended up being a pretty good team, right? Teams go up and down all the time.
Right. The Rams have gone down a little bit. All I know about the schedule and all that matters to me really is that I'm going to Vegas if the season happens, which I don't think it will. But if the season happens, I'm going to Vegas. And I've never been to Vegas. That is far and away the biggest sports town in America that I've never been to.
Really?
Yeah, wow. Sports has never taken. Yeah, because until now, I don't cover hockey. I don't care. So they've had a hockey team for a couple of years, I guess. Don't do that. They've never had anything else. They've got fights, but no one's ever sent me to a fight. CBS sent me to I've been to a couple of UFC things, but never to Vegas. So I've never been to Vegas. And I'm sure Vegas to me is going to be like New York City is to me, which is I'll be very happy to be there for 2 days on someone else's dime. And I'll be very happy to be in that plane flying out of there. But I do want to see it. I want to see it and then maybe never go back again, but I do want to see it.
New Orleans is like that for me.
Oh.
New Orleans, I could do 2 or 3 days in New Orleans and have a great time, and then I'm gone. But you know what? And this may be the only 2 male middle-aged, well, I guess you're middle-aged, podcasts that around where the 2 hosts have never been to Vegas because I've never been either.
Hey, bleep you. I mean, what is that crap?
You already cursed on this episode, so we might as well just.
I was
quoting anything anymore, right?
I was quoting Rich Franklin, but bleep you. What are you talking about? Well, one of us is middle aged. You're four. I mean, first of all, I'm capable of breaking you in half, and you're talking to me like some tough guy. Do you see that blood there?
Yes, from your resistance band. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good point. I actually, when you paused, I was afraid you were going to say, well, one of us is middle-aged, meaning you, and one of us is a senior citizen, meaning me. So I'm grateful you didn't go there.
Yeah.
So you've never been to Vegas either?
No.
Would you like to go? Like, I really want to go. I mean, as soon as the Raiders were on the schedule, I'm sorry, the Raiders moved to Vegas, my only thought was, oh, good, someday I'll get to go there, not knowing it'd be this soon.
Yeah, I had two really close friends who both had their bachelor parties in Vegas, and I had conflicts that I couldn't get out of both times. But my parents go every year, and they love it. I've been to Atlantic City a bunch of times, which is like a trashier version. But I'd love to go back. This is going to sound so lame because I'm not really a big drinker, and I like gambling, but I'm not like super into it. I'd love to go and just eat because of all the great restaurants and everything that they've got there and see some of the shows and all that stuff. Like, that's what appeals to me about Vegas. I'd love to go to a fight. I loved boxing growing up. We used to get all the fights. And I would love to go. I've never been to a live boxing match.
You know, I think I might be going to the Vegas at some point if there's a UFC fight that I like enough. The USA Today asked me to go to Seoul, South Korea. No. Where's the Olympics? The Olympics this year. We're going to be. Tokyo.
Yeah, why can't I think of it? Yeah.
Tokyo. I guess they'd be going on soon. Anyway, USA Today asked me to go to Tokyo, and I responded the only way a human being would respond, and I said, "Do I have to?" And they said, "No, you don't have to." I said, "Good, thank you. I don't want to go. I'd literally rather write about the high school students around here and whatever stories I scrounge up in the summer around here, usually about nobody famous. That means more to me than going to Tokyo and rubbing shoulders with, hey, look at all of us. We're cool media guys. We got sent to Tokyo. Yeah. Screw Tokyo. I like bleep Tokyo. No offense, Tokyo, but bleep road trips. I'd rather wake up at my home with my cat and my oatmeal and watch my TV. And anyway, but my the USA Today bosses said, okay, you don't have to go to Tokyo, but we want you to do something more every now and then, something, I don't know, national, whatever, just something we'd like you to write for our entire audience every now and then, more than just when you do it for the Star. What would you do for us? And I said, well, I go to UFC fight every week if you'd let me. It's because I love that sport so much.
Yeah.
So anyway, hopefully, now that I know that, had the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight happened after this edict I got, which is get your ass on the road and go do something else, I'd have been to that thing. I'm not sure why I brought this whole thing up because why did I bring this up? Because I don't like to travel. Why did I bring this up?
No, we talked about Vegas.
Oh,
and then
okay.
We were talking about seeing fights and then all of that, and then we got into the trip to Tokyo and New Orleans and all that other stuff.
Yeah, if you thought that was a bad turn on this podcast, wait until I start sneezing. I'm allergic to Theodore. See, I'm allergic to him.
Oh,
to
really?
Cats. I'm allergic to animals. I love animals. It's cruel. It's really cruel. I'm allergic to him. And Theodore sheds like no one's ever shed in their life. I mean, he sheds. It's bad. And he sheds, it's not just the hair. I've learned this. It's not just the hair that you're allergic to. It's called the dander. It's the piece of skin that connects the hair to the body. And in Theodore's case, the piece of skin is white, like, dandruff, I guess. It's white. That cat is black, but if you look at him closely, he's all white because he's got little white specks because he's just, it's like little dive bombing. He's about to dive bomb over here and here and here. My computer right now is covered with his damn hair. And it's amazing I'm not sneezing yet. So, hey, when are we going to talk about, because we're running out of time. Damn. When are we going to talk about, man.
All the NCAA stuff you've been writing?
Yeah, the Louisville thing. And
yeah.
I can hear you. Keep talking for a second, and I'm going to go to my face.
Okay. Well, Gregg, if you guys don't know, you should check it out, IndyStar.com or via the IndyStar app. Gregg, his last, I think, 3 columns have been about NCAA issues. And the most recent one, the issue with Louisville popping up again involving Rick Pitino, who is now, of course, at Iona. And the investigation involving that, and really more so how the organization chooses to punish coaches and programs who have now left. So you hammer Louisville for something that a previous coach did, kind of like what happened with Indiana 10 whatever years ago with Kelvin Sampson. You hammer Indiana for something Kelvin Sampson did, and the players that are there outside of, I guess, Kyle Tabor weren't around for Sampson. The coaches that were there weren't there while that cheating was going on. How do you give out these penalties when everybody that was at fault for these penalties are gone? And I thought it was interesting, the show cause thing that you brought up, where Bruce Pearl had 3, I think Sampson had 10.
5.
5, and what the minimum now is 10, correct?
No. The maximum was 10, but as of last year, the maximum is now lifetime.
Gotcha. And talking about what should happen to Pitino, who now, here's the thing. Iona knows exactly what they're doing. You weigh the good press against the bad press, and it's much better to have the name Rick Pitino that you can sell. Hey, look who agreed to coach us. And you don't worry about what happened in previous stops. So I totally understand why Iona did what they did. And that's the problem with this whole thing, Greg, is that you don't really punish these guys. What really is Pitino punished by? Sure, he's with a lesser program. I guess he's probably never going to get another big-time job again, given his age. But still, he's getting paid to be a college basketball coach.
Yeah, and he gets a chance to rehabilitate his image, I guess, a little bit. And in my story, and people, you got to read this thing, and it's what we call metered. It's not behind our paywall entirely. It's not entirely free. It's metered. If you don't click on the star very much, you can read it. If you click on the star all the time, but don't subscribe, you probably get 5 or 6 clicks a month, and you might not. But anyway, read this thing because the kicker. And in print, they cut the story from the bottom somewhere else. It wasn't my boss's, it was somewhere else. So the kicker got cut in print. But the kicker's devastating. It's devastating. It's Rick Pitino's been cheating his whole life. It's devastating, and it's public knowledge, but public record. But a lot of people don't know this. I guarantee you, whoever read that story, including Louisville fans, 90% of them didn't know what I'm telling them in that kicker.
Can I mention just real quick? I won't get into specifics if you don't want to ruin the surprise, but I had no idea about the 1970s
devastating
state. Yeah,
devastating
involving that. I had no idea that Pitino was part of that.
The guy's a scumbag. I mean, I'm not worried about libel or slander. Truth is a defense. The guy's a scumbag. And in fact, I've got a Rick Pitino story. We're getting a little bit long here, but I mean, he is what he is, right? And it's not personal for me. I mean, he's a scumbag, but he just is what he is. And he always has been what he's always been. So when he was at Louisville and he had a bunch of creepy guys on his team and creepy guys hanging around the team, and I wrote about all this stuff for CBS, and I, I can really like if I really like somebody, like a high school athlete or whatever, I can really hug you up in a story good. I can be schmaltzy because I'm very emotional. But man, if I'm down on you, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at making that clear. So my phone rings in Cincinnati one day in like 2000, I don't know, 10 or 11, 12, I don't know what it was. Phone rings. Hello. He goes, Greg, yeah, this is Rick Pitino. And I just want to know, why don't you like me? That happened. Rick Pitino called me. Greg called me. Why don't you like me? And I proceeded to tell him why I've read what I said. Well, there's this.
Sure.
And while no one knows about it, I've heard about this and 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 this. And at the end of the phone call, he's like, just wondering, and we hung up.
Wow.
That was it. Right. So I didn't go looking for that phone call, but anyway, it happened. So I can't take on a rubber band with a stick at the end of it. I can't do that. But if you're a scumbag and you call me and ask me why don't I like you, I can take that. I can do that.
How many people, speaking of people you talk to, because you've insinuated this, how many people do you talk to would just love to see Kansas go down? Because we all know what's going on there at Kansas and has been going on for a long time now.
Man, I was at St. Elmo's about I was at St. Elmo's years ago. I wasn't living here. I was here. We were in town for something, some basketball event. There's some coaches
Final
sitting around
Four?
the table. Might have been. I'm not sure. There's some coaches sitting around the table, and they were telling war stories on the recruiting trail, and it was all off the record. And I was there, but it was off the record. And they don't like Bill Self. They do not like Bill Self. They I'll say this again. They do not like Bill Self. And Bill, if you're listening, they don't like you. And there's a reason they don't like you. There's a lot of reasons they don't like you. And they know a lot of stuff they don't like about you. So yes, coaches are very happy that Kansas is in the crosshairs, and really are shocked. Not shocked. Shocked's the wrong word. Mortified that Kansas is doubling down on whatever happened in this program. Bill didn't know. Oh, okay.
You've been around these guys. I've been around these guys. In order to get to that level, you have to be so obsessed with the everyday 24/7, 365 aspects of your basketball program. It's incredible the detail that these guys have to get where they are. So this whole pleading ignorance thing, it's absolutely ridiculous. All these guys know exactly what's going on.
And listen, Mike Krzyzewski is so charming when he talks. I mean, he is. He's so likable, and I'm a big fan of what he did for USA basketball and made us great again. You know, he took us where we ought to be, and I'll always appreciate that. But when I was in the Charlotte Observer covering Duke, almost annually, because they recruit nationally and they get the best players everywhere, and they'd bring in, and this is back before the one and done was real prevalent. So they'd get these guys in that might come in for years. Chris Duhon was one, Carlos Boozer was one, and there's more. They get guys from other parts of the country, and their families would follow them to Durham, North Carolina,
and get nice jobs, right?
And get nice jobs with Duke boosters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like when you hire a high school coach just so you can get his best player, or you hire someone's dad just to get his son on your staff, which Bill Self has done with Mario Chalmers. That is so blatantly cheating. You're putting, and you can't do it anymore, but for years you could, you're putting $500,000 in a contract, legal contract, in a coach's name.
Yep.
Hey, here's $500,000. Come to Lawrence. And oh, by the way, bring Mario Chalmers with you, Dad. I mean, it's anyway. So yeah, Duke got these guys got jobs, and it's possible Krzyzewski had nothing to do with it. But it's still it's an advantage. And anyway, it's just you know everything. I mean, even if Krzyzewski had nothing to do with Chris Duhon's mom getting a great job at the post office in Durham, he knew about it. Don't tell me you don't know. You know.
Yeah, and am I supposed to believe that Zion Williamson's camp shopped him around everywhere else, but he decided to go play at Duke for free? Come on. That's Cam Newton at Auburn, the same thing. Yeah, he was asking Mississippi State for pay for play, but he went to Auburn for free. Sure.
The one thing that I will say about all these guys, Romeo Langford's dad too. Romeo Langford's dad started an AAU program down there. And why would you do that? Because you can get legally paid by a shoe company. I mean, it's legal, but it's a loophole, but it's legal. I've got so much sympathy, something for guys like Romeo, Zion, Cam Newton. I suspect that when their parents are doing whatever it is they're doing, allegedly, the kids don't know. The kids have no idea. I suspect they just don't know. And I'll go to my grave believing they don't know. And innocent until proven guilty. Your parents are doing whatever they're doing. I'll go to my grave believing every last one of you kids didn't know unless this news comes out that you did know. Okay, that one knew. The rest of them didn't know. I just don't think they know. I don't think, because it's not the kind of thing parents want to say to their kids.
Yeah.
Hey, son, I'm using you to get. No, they're not telling them that. They're just pocketing this money themselves.
Of course. Check out Gregg's columns online, the Pitino, all the NCAA stuff, IndyStar.com, IndyStar mobile app. Subscribe as well. They've got the free coronavirus coverage on there. But, all this stuff that's been happening in our city with IMPD and everything else, now is the time to subscribe if you aren't already. There's a lot of important news happening right now in our town. Hopefully by next week, Gregg, that scuff will heal up a little bit, and
hopefully
we'll be back to do another podcast.